Shasta daisies are terrific garden perennials. They really steal the show with their bright white flowers during the summer months and look perfectly at home in a perennial border or in a mixed border like this one. And this very fine double-flowered form is an excellent example of some of the best of all the Shasta daisies. It carries these pristine white, clear, sparkling white flowers on top of its dark green foliage. The flowers themselves are about 3 to 4 inches wide and are carried in tremendous profusion to make a really great display. Now, the really nice thing about Shasta daisies is that they're very easy to grow. All they need is a nice sunny location in an average garden soil. Just make sure that it's free draining. And when you plant them out, water them well until they become established. And you'll find they'll grow up like this one to make a beautiful plant wherever you will plant it in your garden. Now, white is a great colour to use in the garden. It's neutral, so it will blend well with any other colours that you might have in the border. It makes a great accent plant, picking out somewhere perhaps in a distant part of the border. And if you become a little creative, you can plant it with things like spiky grasses or dark leaf shrubs like the dark-leafed Weigela here in the background, and that really will accentuate and make the white flowers stand out even more. Of course, white also shows up well in the evening, so if you're somebody who's busy working during the day and the only time you get to spend in the garden is in the evening, a white flowered plant like this is perfect, particularly for moon gardens and gardens that are going to be shown and seen later in the day. The other thing that's important to mention is that white, of course, is a colour that's associated with weddings. And since this flowers usually in June, the most popular month for weddings, this is a perfect perennial for growing if you're planning to have a wedding or you need something to decorate a wedding festivity. And like many perennials, they're great for cutting and bringing indoors too. Try to trim them early in the morning or late in the evening. That way the flowers will last longer. Take off the bottom leaves, make a fresh, clean cut, and then just pop them into a vase of water, and they should last for about a week or 10 days. And the final thing I want to mention is that, as you see from further down the plant here, there's lots of buds. So this will keep flowering for many weeks during the summer months. But if you go through and remove the old flower heads when they begin to fade, in other words, it's a technique known as deadheading. If you trim them off, you'll find that it will make new growth from the base that will throw more flower buds, and you'll be able to extend the flowering all through the whole summer months and perhaps even into the autumn. Now, I have to mention that every time I see a Shasta daisy, it brings a special kind of smile to my face. You see, there's a couple of great stories about the development of these plants. Now, the Shasta daisies, that's the single flowered ones, were developed by the great Luther Burbank. He, as a young man, envisaged the perfect daisy. He noticed the little oxeye daisy and thought that that could be improved upon. And he set out to cross it with 4 different varieties and then create what has become known as the Shasta daisies, that he introduced the first one in 1901. Then in the 1920s, an English nurseryman called Horace Reed was riding along on the train one day on a day trip, and as he looked out of the compartment of his window, he noticed that up on the bank was a little semi-double flowered form of the oxeye daisy. He was so taken by what he'd seen that it bothered him all day, and on the way back, because he was on a day trip, when he got near the spot where he thought he'd seen the plant, he pulled the emergency brake, brought the train to a halt, and in the confusion nipped out and dug up the plant and brought it back to his nursery. He used that in his breeding program, and in 1931 introduced the very first double-flowered Shasta daisy that was called Esther Reed. Now things have moved on a little bit from then until today. We have other varieties, and this really is an excellent example of a good double-flowered Shasta daisy that I hope you'll enjoy growing in your garden, and maybe it might even stop you in your tracks too. This is David Wilson. Enjoy your gardening. It's good for us, and it's very good for our environment too.
Garden Splendor, it's worth remembering.